Welcome to the Pop Goes the Culture podcast for the weekend of Friday, January the 17th. My name is Joey Mills, and joining me today on the show, I've got.
Zach Wilson.
How's it going, Zach?
Joey Mills, you probably got a little bit of a hint by my jovial tone, but let me tell you what.
Uh-oh.
I'm doing great. I had this whole thing, Joey. I had
Uh-huh.
this whole thing where I was going to tell you what show has completely dominated my life.
Uh-huh.
Spoiler alert, it is Great British Bake Off. It
Mm.
doesn't matter anymore, Joey.
Why?
Nothing else matters.
Because.
Because Thursday morning,
Uh-huh.
we received first look at none other than the Nintendo Switch 2.
That's right, and we're going to get to that here in a little bit.
We are.
Take a drink here, clear my throat. Yes. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube if you're finding us there. What else have you been up to? I know last weekend was going to be a big weekend for us.
It was going to be a big
but
weekend for both of us, but life had other plans. Yeah, no.
so did Mother Nature.
So honestly, with the lack of a con, and we had a
Mhm.
little bit of kind of a bye week, it had some time for a little bit of housekeeping.
Mhm.
Got to catch up on a few things. The Great British Bake Off, which I kind of mentioned, completely has dominated my life up until Thursday morning.
Okay.
It honestly, it's a show. Have you seen it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's a show that I've heard about before.
Uh huh.
It's one that, has this acclaim to it, but it really wasn't one that I really ever, gave a what about up until I made the leap with Molly last weekend and started watching it.
Yeah.
And it is just so addicting, sure, but it's just so refreshing.
Kind of that
Yeah.
cozy.
Yeah.
Nope. Yes, it's a competition, but nobody's really in competition. They're just out there doing their best, and they're so positive and uplifting. And
Yeah, it's just such a stark contrast to what I'm so used to with more American
Mhm.
cooking competitions. Like even so far as much as the music. Like the music in usually our more American focused competitions is just like this really pulsing, like on the edge of your
Yeah, it's all
seat,
about
like
the
rock
tension. Yeah.
music and like you can tell that the competitors aren't crazy about one another. Like there's all this drama. Whereas with Great British Baking Show, it is so like just cozy, like you said. It has just like light, like almost like you're frolicking in a field of flowers, music. Everybody's so nice to each other. The hosts are just happy to be there. It's so refreshing after growing up with so much like just pulsing, like so much tension involved with our programming. So I don't know. It's a show that just I can't find a fault to. It's the perfect show if you want to watch something in the background, if you want to be invested in. It's an amazing show.
That kind of. I mean, I think that just looking at our reality TV as
Hmm.
opposed to reality TV that's not based on an American thing, just its own shows. I think that speaks to a lot of where we're at as a society right now, where
Sure.
everything is a competition. Everybody, it's cutthroat. It's
Yeah.
you're the winner or you're the loser. Second place is just the first
Yeah, I was
loser,
about to say what was the
and
the Ricky Bobby quote? You're not
the,
first, you're last.
that's right, and that's where it seems like we're at as a society, and it's reflected in our entertainment, especially because it's cheap to produce reality television
Hmm.
or game shows or whatever. So yeah, I
Well,
mean it's a very clear portrait of how we think here as opposed to how, other places. Yes, it's a competition, but they're there to support one another. You never see on an American reality show if somebody needs help with something, another competitor coming over and helping them. But you'll see that on other shows like British Bake Off or Great British Cooking Show, whatever, whichever ones you're watching. But yeah, it's just it's yeah, we hear it's every person for him or herself, and
and it's just
that's so wrong.
and it's just something that like you don't know you want it until it's presented to you. Because I mean, I grew up with a lot of
Hmm.
the American classics, and
Right?
like Iron Chef, perfect example.
Yeah.
In Iron Chef, you are head to head with a very accomplished chef. There's fire everywhere, pulsing music, like the tensions are high. Whereas like Great British Bake Off, it's just a breath of fresh air, and one that I didn't know I needed until I started watching
And even Iron Chef originated in Japan, and if you watch the old Japanese versions, it is, yes, it's still a competition, but they're having fun.
it.
Like even though they're
Interesting.
intense, they're because now there's Iron Chef, which was the Japanese version, and then there's Iron Chef America, which is again more cutthroat, and they still kind of joke around with each other, but not to the
Sure.
extent that the Japanese version is all more about the pageantry of
Hmm.
cooking, if that makes sense, because cooking is just cooking, but it's more about, yes, a spectacle, and Yeah, I think it's of course Japanese reality television is kind of
They
weird
get a lot
anyway.
wrong. And it's not to say that either of them are the right way to
Right.
do it,
It's
because like
just a
we
reflection
could
of
be
the
having
society. Yeah.
exactly, we could be having a conversation with one of our friends from Britain, and they could be saying the exact opposite, that they like
It's a
the
little too
excitement.
slow. Or,
Exactly,
yeah.
they like the excitement of American television and our cooking shows. So it was just an interesting thing to observe.
So all about the British
All
cooking now,
about it, and I know I'm not
which is
alone in.
funny because Britain known for their flavorful
Oh yeah,
foods.
yeah, known for their flavorful food.
It's weird that you controlled the empire all because
Yeah.
of spice trade, and then you refuse to use any
Used
kind of spice
used
or
to flat out
flavoring
use it.
in your film foods. Yeah. Was there something else you've been up to you want to talk
The
about?
only other thing that I had remotely been going on is, again, in the absence of the shows last weekend,
Hmm.
was able to catch up on a few things. And one of them that I've been definitely been meaning to catch up on were some comics that I've been having in the
Okay.
backlogs. So one I've been reading, and I'm unclear of if I like it or not. And forgive me for audiences that are looking for it because I don't remember the name, but it's I believe it's either a two or three comic book series. It's Deadpool basically massacres the entirety of the Marvel
Yeah,
universe.
Deadpool kills the Marvel universe.
Oh, is that exactly what
Yeah,
it's
that's
called?
what it's
Okay.
called. Yeah, there's there's a second one, there's third. Yeah.
I see, and I'm one issue deep.
Hmm.
It takes me a little bit to
Yeah,
read some things. I promise I know how to read. Um,
I hope so.
and it's just it's cool. Asterisks. The thing that I'm a little hesitant on is because I'm wanting a payoff at the end, and I'm concerned that I'm not going to get one.
Okay.
It is starting to feel a little bit just like a gore fest.
Right.
And if that's what it is, fine if you're into that. But I personally will feel a little disappointed because after all of this gratuitous violence, I'd like at the end of it for it to all come full circle, and I don't know what necessarily,
Some
but
sort of payoff.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I don't want at the end he kills, I don't know, the last person, and all of a sudden roll credits.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm a little
spoilers. There's more books, so he doesn't
well,
kill
sure.
everybody. But yeah, or somebody comes back. Yeah.
Mm.
No spoilers. Yeah. So as you were alluding to, your convention was canceled. Northwest Arkansas Comic Con. We knew it was canceled last week. I think we talked about that on the show. I was still cautiously optimistic that I would be able to get out to South Carolina for Central Carolina
Oh
Comic
yeah.
Con. Woke up Friday morning. First thing I did before I even looked outside was check flight information and saw that the flight that the plane that I needed to be on that day was coming from Atlanta and it was already canceled.
Oh wow.
And then I looked at our local, app or whatever for our airport, and multiple flights heading south of where we are were canceled. That included didn't even matter Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Charlotte. There were flights being canceled. So then I looked outside, and at that point, I think we had around 7 inches of snow. And I don't live on a major thoroughfare. I
Yeah.
can get to a highway really quick, but I got to get to the
Yeah,
highway.
you get out there
So,
first.
and nothing had been touched. It looked like so. Yeah,
It was a lot more than I was expecting.
yeah, it
Like I,
was.
I knew we were getting
Well,
some stuff. I didn't know we were getting
they
snow
kept
snow.
they kept bumping it throughout the week, like all week long. It's like 1 to 3 inches, 1 to 3 inches. Then we get like to third or to like Wednesday afternoon. They're like maybe more like 2 to 4, and then we get to Thursday and it's like maybe like 3 to 5. And then yeah, it just kind of kept bumping, and then it's like okay, we got about here we had about right around 7 inches, and so I did not make it to Central Carolina Comic Con, which meant that we had to have an emergency backup that we had been putting in place throughout the week, and he was activated Friday morning. He got the go
he,
ahead
he
text from
got the
me.
code.
He got a picture of the street in front of my house with the "It's you now," So, and his name's Adrian Carter. We'll talk with him actually a little bit more later on in the show. But from what I understand, even though the show continued without me, which is totally fine, not my choice. Weather is weather, not their choice. Weather is
Show
weather.
must go on.
But I know that there were at least one guest had to cancel because they were watching fires and wanted to make sure that they got everything out that needed to be out if they needed to make a decision on evacuating or not. But apparently, even some of the flights were still messed up. I know that some of our folks drove from Columbia, South Carolina to Atlanta to pick up some people, which is
Oh
about an
wow.
hour and a half
Wow,
drive,
yeah, that's no
which
small feat.
Dusty and I have done it before. We did it last year. It's not hard, but it is a
Not fun
thing.
either.
Yeah. But then I guess there was also some pickups in Charlotte, which is like a 3 hour one way drive. So that would have been 6 hours in the road to get there, three back with a guest. So travel was all snarled up over the weekend, rightfully so. But that kept me from getting out to the convention. So that stinks. But next show, I've got a show in 2 weeks,
There you go.
Little Rock Anime Fest. And then 2 weeks after that, we've got Missouri Comic
Missouri
Con.
Comic Con.
And that's huge. We got a huge
Ooh,
lineup for that show. And if you're interested in going to that show, keep watching the Missouri Comic Con social media pages. There are still announcements yet to be made, I believe.
oh
So,
yes.
so we can only do so much research and prep because things are still in flux because of how many people want to come to Springfield for a convention. It's crazy. We go from nothing, not nothing. We go from smaller shows to
Yeah,
you
like
throw in some bigger shows, and now all of a sudden it's like it's a convention destination now,
oh yeah.
apparently.
The
So,
way I see it is like up until the last couple years, I
mhm.
mean, Springfield has been on the rise, and with that, with the convention industry becoming what it is
Right,
and becoming as big as it is, I mean, it was only natural that eventually bigger and bigger conventions would get in here.
right.
But until again, the last couple of years ago, it was full of conventions that had good intentions, I feel.
Yeah,
And I feel like had every intention to become one of the big ones.
I agree. Um, Intention is less important to me than impact. So
Mhm.
you can intend to get there, but if you're not actually getting there, you're not there. And honestly, a lot of the conventions locally, prior to Missouri Comic Con coming in, have at times, when attending or doing presenting panels, whatever, have kind of felt like, and this is not a bad thing. It's just what I observed.
It's just the nature of it.
We yes, I will observe and I will speak to it. We won't judge it for what it is, but it felt like a lot of friends, which is great,
Sure.
putting together a convention just so they would have a convention to hang out
Yeah,
at, if
excuse to
that
hang
makes
out and
sense.
spend
Yeah.
time together.
So it wasn't necessarily for the purposes of building a convention. It was, I'm going to get my friends together. We're going to work hard and put on a convention,
Mhm.
and we're going to do it the absolute best that we can. But at the end of the day, it's really about that group of friends just coming together periodically during the planning and
For
then
sure.
spending a long weekend together, a 3 day weekend together. So that's not a judgment. There's a place for that in every convention city. It doesn't matter if you're New York City with New York Comic Con, there's still a place for those types of conventions, and they still take place there as well.
Sure.
So it's not so much like I said, it's not a judgment. This was something totally different. And so when Missouri Comic Con came in, and there was initially some, that they're, it felt like a competition maybe at
Sure.
times. However, I hope that quickly it was ascertained that what you're doing is your thing, what we're doing is our thing, what these guys are doing is their thing, and while they're all still conventions, they don't really compete. You
Mhm.
can't take a for-profit convention and compare that to a local non-for-profit convention that donates proceeds to local charities. They're two different worlds, even though they're both conventions. So I hope that at some point that initial like somebody's coming into our city, they're
Goes
outsiders, those
goes
foreigners.
away.
Yeah, at some point it's like, okay, look, this is what they're doing, this is what we're doing. They're not the same.
Right.
So,
And like while there is something to be said about community, I mean, it's
mhm,
one of the big tenets to make a successful convention.
absolutely.
I mean, we've worked with conventions for years now, so
Hmm.
while of course we're not judging, I mean, we do have a little bit of an insight into
Yeah.
this industry. So with that, I mean, if you want to just have like an opportunity, like we mentioned, to just hang out with your pals and like put on a show and have people gather, that's totally fine and
Absolutely.
doable and under your purview. But if you are wanting to compete or be a part of some of the bigger shows, some of the bigger cons, you have to have more. There's a
Hmm.
degree of professionalism and resources that for
That you
profits
don't have unless you're
that you
for
don't
profit. Yeah.
exactly. So it's one of those things that you truly can't compete. So
Yeah.
you have to either find your niche or just be happy with being a smaller show.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with a
Nothing
smaller
wrong at
show.
all.
Yep. Uh, Beyond that, because I had all of a sudden a free weekend that I planned to do absolutely nothing, I've got a new game I downloaded on the PC. It's called
Oh,
Soul Mask. It's one
I've
of
not
these.
heard about
I
this.
hadn't either until I downloaded it. I was like, I'm looking for something new. This looks cool. Yeah, it's a survival game. You
Okay.
start off as like the lone survivor of your tribe that was being massacred or whatever. Now you got to start from scratch. So it's
Okay.
one of those where you gather the resources, build your community, build followers, and put them to work and
Okay.
stuff.
So
So
is it more like Rust-esque or like Subnautica?
a little more Rust-esque, but
Okay.
very primitive, more like spears, bows
I
and
see.
arrows,
Okay. Does it have an
axes.
overarching story, kind of like Subnautica? Or is it
there
purely
there are things to do.
okay?
There are things to explore that lead you to areas where it progressively gets higher level type stuff.
Okay.
But as far as like at the end of the day, is there you know a story? Not necessarily. No,
Okay.
it's just build
You're
your
given
thing.
enough to like
Yeah,
motivate you to go
to
through
keep
it.
going. Yeah,
Okay.
and there's it's a big map. You're always finding new stuff. It's like, oh, I
Okay.
didn't even know this was here. Then you got to look it up. It's like,
Soul
what is
Mask.
this?
Interesting. Is
Yeah.
it free or
It wasn't free, but it wasn't much. Maybe 20
20
bucks,
bucks? That's not
25
bad,
bucks.
especially
Yeah.
for like a huge open map like that, kind of a
Yeah.
sandbox. Like that's not
Yeah.
bad.
So that's been fun. It's taken a lot of my time. I did finish also the first season of Creature Commandos over on Max. Did you finish
Okay,
it?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
I
Well,
I got sucked
here's the
into
deal.
Great British Baking Show.
So they go pretty hard in the final episode, which is
Really?
cool. Once it's over, my wife hadn't watched it, so I'm rewatching it with her. She's
Oh,
watching it for
cool.
the first time, and you see the breadcrumbs that were there that you missed the first time viewing. It's like, oh, wait a minute, you're right. Some of those things you did notice, but you didn't know what was going on, so
Okay.
you just kind of like filed it in the back of the head. I know there's probably something there. Let's see what's going on. But at the end of it, you're like, oh, yeah, you've been leading us here, literally going back and watching it since the second episode. You've been putting us in this
Really?
position to
Okay.
get to the finale. But beyond that, we know already they've announced that they are going to get a second season of the animated
Okay,
series.
cool.
And we know some of the characters in the animated series have appeared in DC's live action, like the current continuity, the current canon or whatever. Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, some of those types. Again, shows James Gunn was directly involved in, so
Yeah.
he's continuing what he did and throwing out what everybody else did. But the question becomes, if this goes live action, if not necessarily the series, but if some of these characters come over into a live action film or television series, who would you want to play some of these characters? And we're not going to go through everybody, but there are a couple bigger ones that do make it through the season.
Sure.
So we have Dr. Phosphorus,
Mm-hmm.
who is the voiced by Alan
Alan
Tudyk.
Tudyk.
They do, I can't remember if it's in the final episode or in the one previous. They do make a Ghost Rider reference, which is hilarious
Fun. Fun.
because it's and not yes, Marvel exists here. So does Alan Tudyk play him in live
Honestly, I
action?
was about to say like I feel like they nailed it. I mean,
Yeah,
sure, obviously you'll have to do like special effects and
yeah.
whatnot, but I mean, why fix what ain't broke?
Yeah, I think you go that route as well. Frankenstein, voiced by David Harbour from Stranger Things. He played
Okay.
Hellboy as well in a flop a few years ago.
Yeah.
It did not do well, but do you continue to have him as Frankenstein in the prosthetics? It's another bite at the apple after Hellboy, but at the same time, because of the way Hellboy was received, do you even want to go that route? Because he's not a small guy; he's a bigger,
Sure.
tall, broad-shouldered
Is
guy. You would have to put him in lifts and
I
you
was gonna say like
prosthetics
that
and
is
stuff.
he
But
Frankenstein big
yeah,
though?
yeah. Well, I mean, do you make him that way? You can pad up, you can put big lifts on the shoes and big thick heel like Frankenstein has anyway. They did that originally with the original actor. Boris Karloff is a tall guy, but not Frankenstein
Not
tall.
Frankenstein level.
You can pad him, you can square up the shoulders a little bit like they did in the old black and white stuff. If they could do it 90 years ago,
They
and with
should
all the
do it
resources we
today.
have now, do you keep it, or is there somebody else that would be a better fit for that character?
I don't think that is the absolute worst idea in the
Hmm.
world. I mean, it's definitely doable. I mean, like I said, if we could do it in 90 years, we could certainly do it now.
Yeah.
But I would say for that character specifically, and nothing against the
Hmm.
original voice actor, I feel like since being so tall and so brooding, so distinguished for that character, I do fear that if we put too much effort on just shoehorning the original voice actor
Right.
to make him into the live action version, it might look a little camp or silly. Not to say that the
Right.
show doesn't have camp and silly
Yeah. Yeah.
moments, but it is at least somewhat ingrained in seriousness in the thriller violence sort of it. So I would almost say for that role specifically, we might be better off looking for an actor that can maybe portray the sheer size of Frankenstein a little better.
And finally, The Bride is the one that I'm most
Hmm.
intrigued by. because if you close your eyes and listen, it it sounds like the voice actress is channeling another person who has done voiceover work, who has been live action. And I'm thinking in my head, if the bride were to show up down the road in a Batman TV
Hmm.
series that's in continuity, not like the Penguin and that
Sure.
side, but this, like, who would you want as the bride? And I've got an idea, but
So is the voice actress completely off the table?
I'm taking her off the table because her voice acting is indistinguishable from the person I'm thinking of.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
from their speaking voice, what they've been in the past and stuff.
I don't know if I had to think of the bride. I'm trying to think of like classic femme fatales that I haven't really seen too much of. The only one that keeps coming to mind that could probably pull off that accent as well, I would say is probably Charlize Theron.
Okay,
That's where my mind first goes.
I'm thinking from Game of Thrones. She
Okay.
played Cersei Lannister.
Yeah.
Lena Headey.
Yes, 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 Lena Headey.
If you close
Yeah.
your eyes and just listen, it sounds like she's doing the voice anyway.
Interesting.
And she has
She's
enough.
got.
She's got enough of that attitude, enough of
Mhm.
that bitchy badass, and I'm not using that in a derogatory way.
Sure,
That's
sure,
the
sure, sure.
character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kind of that she that it's well trod territory for her.
Well, and she's kind of known for playing roles like that, like playing
Mhm.
roles
The tough,
of like very tough
whether
female
it's
with an under.
whether it's Game of Thrones, whether it's when she was Sarah Connor in the
Mhm.
Sarah Connor Chronicles, she was a badass.
Yeah, with that underlining vulnerability,
Hmm.
something that they are trying to hide because they do not want to be perceived
They don't want
as
anybody to know there's a soft nougaty
exactly.
center
Huh.
to that
Okay.
hard
All right.
candy
You sold
shell.
me on it. You sold me on it.
So those are our thoughts. We'd like to hear your thoughts as well. Let us know what you've been up to. Also, you can hit us up on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon, X, wherever you're looking. Just search for and find us at PGTC Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Know what you're up to, what you're watching, what we should be watching. I'd love to get your recommendations. The news stories that popped up to you. You're like, ooh, I hope they talk about this. Well, let us know. We'll try to talk about it in an upcoming episode. So, moving on to some of the headlines from the past week or so. At the box office last weekend, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera. Never heard of it. Never
I
even heard of the first
I mean, it's got Ice Cube's son in it.
one.
It's
Good.
pretty cool.
Good for him. That debuted at number one at the box office over the weekend. That means everything else slid down a spot. So Lion King Mufasa goes to 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 goes to 3, Nosferatu and Moana 2 each round out the top 5. That drops Wicked out of the top 5.
Out of the top
Won't
five.
be back. Prince's iconic white puffy shirt from Purple Rain. Do you know the shirt I'm talking about?
I've seen it.
It's a white shirt. It's got the tight collar and it's got the
Yeah, kind of the
frills on the
frilly.
front.
Like, yeah, yeah,
It has been all over entertainment pop culture
yeah.
for the past 40 years now. It was part of the inspiration behind the Seinfeld puffy shirt episode. The Chappelle shows, Charlie Murphy,
Oh yeah,
playing
it's
basketball,
it's
shirts
iconic.
versus blouses. Yes,
It transcends
yeah,
generations.
everybody knows the shirt when you see it. Even if it doesn't come to mind when you see it, you know it. It is being up for auction now,
Really?
and the starting bid for the shirt is $55,000.
Ooh, that's one less zero than I expected.
Exactly. And they expect it's going to reach and bring in, when all said and done, about $90,000.
That's just
For
hmm.
$90,000,
No,
I feel like they should just hang on to it and put it
I
in the Paisley Palace that he's got up there and make it a
honestly
museum for the
okay.
estate.
Don't get me wrong, 90,000 bones, nothing to
Yeah,
shake a stick at. But
but
it
this is
seems
Prince's, yeah,
so
for Prince's
yeah.
estate, that's worth hanging on to for
I
90,000.
would think so. Yeah,
And
like give it maybe another 10 years. You can maybe even add a zero to that.
yeah, or yeah, just hang on to it.
Oh yeah,
Put
just
it in the
yeah.
Smithsonian for that for
Like yeah,
90,000.
who's hurting for money? Like who's getting this money?
The Prince estate, which is ran by his sister who recently passed away. So I don't know where the money's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Somebody now is making a decision after his
Huh,
sister passed
yeah.
away to auction that off so they can get the
And I'm not
90,000. It
like the
feels like.
biggest Prince fan. Like I
Yeah.
respect his body of work and seen a couple things, like a couple movies that he was in and whatnot. It's like I'm familiar with him. It's just like it seems so criminally low of a price to sell something like that at.
I would hang on to it for that. If I had, if $90,000 was
Yeah.
couch change I found in between the cushions, I would hang on to it.
So I mean, I don't know if you're like a gigantic Prince fan. I mean, you might be saying, "Shut up, guys! I want to get that. That's a good deal."
I know some, and they're not going to pay 90,000 for
Yeah, that's
that
fair.
shirt. One of the oldest distributors of comics has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy
Oh,
Tuesday morning, Diamond Comic Distributors filed a voluntary petition for relief, that's the official terming, to help facilitate the restructuring of its business. Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It falls under the bankruptcy code. It's typically used by companies when they don't plan on shutting the doors, but they got so much debt, they got to have some sort of relief. And
Sure.
so Chapter 11 is a bankruptcy protection that says, okay, we're not closing you down. Let's figure out what you actually can
What you
pay these
need.
people, and then the creditors get like pennies on the dollar
Mhm.
tossed their way, which is really bad for the creditors, but it's good for the company, I guess. Anyway, they have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They have been the comic book
Mhm.
distributor. When you go to your local comic shop for years prior to COVID, it was everything came from Diamond.
They were the go-to, yeah.
Yeah, but since COVID, a lot of the bigger companies like Marvel, DC have decided we can do this ourselves because Diamond didn't do anything during COVID. They said, well, we're not bringing people into the warehouse, rightfully so, but then
Sure.
they also kind of drug their feet on actually starting back up again. So yeah, so a quote from the owner or the president, I guess, not the owner, says Diamond has been the linchpin of the comic book industry for over 4 decades. Our priority has always been to provide quality service to publishers, retailers, and ultimately to comic book fans. We remain committed to finding additional buyers for our business. So they are looking to for investors, buyers, but that really feels kind of hollow because Diamond is constantly missing delivery dates. Their janky packaging means that the books show up in pretty rough shape recently. I didn't always wasn't always that way, but in the last 5 years, it's the quality of service they provided has gone downhill. And if you're one of the people who is a collector of comics, you know, you've seen them in the comic book store. They're
Sure.
going through every copy of that issue to find the perfect, the closest to mint condition they can. But Diamond was notorious in the last few years of like, oh, here's my book, but the corners are all roughed up,
Mhm.
and or the covers bent in some
Yeah.
cases. It's
These collector's items are just like infinitely worth much less just because of these
just
slight
because of these
negligences.
guys, yeah.
Yeah.
So when they say, we're committed to, yeah, well,
I
where
mean,
was
are
that
you?
commitment for the
Yeah.
last 5 years?
So do you think, Joey, that
Hmm.
this might be a sign of the end? Like maybe not right
Of comic
away
books
of
and
comic
of the
books
industry,
of the industry, not necessarily the industry, like the artists, the
right?
writers,
Yeah.
not necessarily that, but the actual distribution of
A
physical
physical.
comic
I
books.
think that at some point there's a good chance that having a physical comic book in your hand, that's a comic book, not a graphic novel, not
Sure.
a because you can get those like those collections, the graphic novel
Yeah.
collections, volume one of whatever at like Barnes and Noble. You can order them on Amazon, whatever.
But like issue
But having
789
yeah,
of
having an
such and such.
issue, having a physical copy of an issue in your hand, I think is not ever going to go away
Oh,
because of
okay.
collectors, but I think it is going to become a very small, very targeted, very niche market
Almost
that is
niche, yeah.
just for collectors of books.
Mhm.
And I could potentially see even at some point, depending on how many people there are that do that, maybe the comics become print on demand, where it's like, yes, if you want to, because right now, if you want to order a comic book through your local comic book store, they have to submit, like, here's how many copies of XYZ that I want for the
Almost a
store.
request form.
So they have numbers, and a lot of times those numbers that the distributors, the retailers, even the publishers will try to inflate those numbers. They're like, well, you're going to buy 13, but if you buy 20, we'll throw
Mhm.
in one variant cover. And if you go to 25, you'll get two copies of it. Or you get to 30, there's two copies of that and two copies of this other variant cover. So they're already trying to pad those stats anyway. But I could absolutely see where that cutoff date becomes if I don't have your order by this date, they're not going to print
You're
you a
not going
book.
to get it.
Yeah, or you'll have to get it in the aftermarket, secondhand or something. So I could see that potentially coming up.
I don't think while it's not a great sign, I don't think we all need to be running to the hills, at least for now,
Right.
because this same exact conversation that you and I are having was being had when like Kindles first came out,
Yep.
right? When audiobooks maybe got a little bit more popular, we started to be concerned, like, hey, does that mean print
Publishing's, yeah.
books and publishers like no longer a thing? But we then see, I mean, stores like Barnes and Noble, I mean, they're not going anywhere
Yep.
anytime soon. They sell e-readers, and
Yeah.
yet they still get
Yeah.
sold out in Christmas and holiday times with books. So
Yep.
while I do agree for comics, I don't think we need to be running the hills just yet. I do think it's not exactly a great sign, and that
No.
it might be, like you said, it might turn into a little bit more of a niche market.
And what the biggest impact this move is going to have is going to be on the smaller publishers that were still
Mm,
using Diamond. Like I said, DC, Marvel, ID, some of the bigger ones had already gone
kind
a
of jump
different
ship.
direction anyway. So I could see maybe some of those smaller publishers struggling to find distributors right away.
That's too bad.
Hopefully not. Yeah. The other thing I think that is really important to the industry as a whole is since Stan Lee passed away, and since like TV shows like Comic Book Men were canceled, we don't have a real strong face of the industry that's out there in the public advocating for comic books.
Mm,
Like there for a time as Stan Lee was getting older, he was just kind of showing up in the Marvel movies
sure.
and whatever, and then somebody would put him on a strap him to a gurney and wheel him out for comic book conventions, put a pen in his hand, and then like wheel him back afterwards. Literally, that's what they were doing. Um, it felt like we haven't really had a good ambassador for the industry. Like I said, Kevin Smith was for a while
Hmm.
Stan Lee was still alive, and then after Stan Lee passed, it seems like even he's kind of cooled
Tapered
off
off
on
a
that a
little
little bit.
bit.
So there needs to be somebody. I don't know who it is, but there needs to be somebody who is known and knows their stuff, a
Hey,
respected
I need somebody.
advocate, an actor, a
Hmm.
somebody, that's like, hey guys, this is still like, yeah, they're still making cool comic books. You guys
Hmm.
should be out there reading these because it's not at this point. It feels like it's just this is stuff that eventually maybe somebody will make a movie out of, or a TV series out
Or at
of.
least like an indie film you
Yeah.
see.
So
Mm.
yeah, they need somebody out there banging the drum for comic
I just
books
don't
as a
know
whole.
who it would be at this point.
That's the problem.
Henry Cavill's the person that keeps running to mind.
Yeah, he would
That
be.
seems like something.
He has the nerd cred,
Hmm.
but I don't think comic books are his thing.
Yeah, that's what I was about to
He
say.
loves the tabletop wargaming.
Warhammer,
He
yeah.
loves reading. He loves the Witcher book series. But I've not really heard him like come right up there and be like comic books.
Why not?
It could be a James Gunn
Oh, there you
potentially,
go.
but he's got so much on his plate that I have a hard time seeing him out there really
That'll be a
advocating
battle he
hard for
takes up
comics.
a
Yeah.
banner for.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. As you alluded to earlier, Nintendo released its first look at the Switch 2. That's the official name for it, the Switch 2. In addition to a slightly larger form factor and improved hardware, the one thing I took away from the official unveiling was that the Switch 2 physical games are the exact same as a Switch 1 game. They're that little SD card looking
Yeah,
cartridge, which means Switch 2 games will be designed for the Switch 2, will take advantage of the new hardware, so you won't be able to play a Switch 2 game in your Switch, but your Switch games that you've got and have had for I think it's 8 years now that the
yep,
Switch has been
yeah,
around,
roughly.
almost a decade. By the time this one comes out, close to a decade, those games will play in the Switch 2, and that's something I wish a lot more console makers were cognizant of and really tried to like, hey, because most of them, PlayStation, Xbox, it's a Blu-ray
Yeah,
or a HD DVD or whatever. There's no reason why you couldn't pull out an old PlayStation 3 game, put it in a PlayStation 5 and play it other than the fact that they don't let
it
you.
just yeah, it's just like a barrier to
Yeah,
entry.
so I
Yeah,
wish more console makers were a little more friendly within their own console ecosystem of allowing you to, more backwards compatibility, I guess.
yeah. What it looked like is they're doing the thing that they did for the 3DS.
Hmm.
So the 3DS could play DS games
Yep.
and 3DS games, and but since they were similar shaped, the 3DS games were a tiny bit bigger
Hmm.
and had a little bit of groove, so that if you tried, and believe me, guys, I did
Yeah,
try,
yeah.
tried to plug a 3DS game into a DS, it just flat out would not
Yep.
work. It wouldn't even let you put it in.
Yep.
So yeah, very exciting. I mean, like as I alluded to, I'm very hyped about it. We've been having for months now, like rumors and quote unquote leaks,
Yep.
many of which ended up not being true. So that's a lesson to not take too many leaks into consideration.
Yep.
But yeah, we finally have actual footage of it. Largely like speaking of why Fixer ain't broke. It's largely a very similar design,
Yeah.
just a little bit more elongated, a little bit more
A little
sleek
sleeker looking.
looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. And from what I could tell, they had a very brief clip of
Mario
Mario
Kart.
Kart, and
Yeah.
it looked like it was still Mario Kart
Yeah.
8. I didn't get any like huge indications of, oh my gosh, is this Mario Kart 9
Yeah.
or
It didn't look like, yeah, it's not built in the Unreal Engine. It doesn't look
yeah,
photorealistic of Mario driving it,
exactly.
Yeah, it
So
looks like Mario Kart that Yeah, honestly, it looks like the same Mario Kart you could have played on the Wii U. I
Mhm.
mean, it looks similar.
So very little information outside of that. However, we did get at least a tentative release date, which is crazy soon.
2005 or 2025, excuse
Yeah,
me.
no, April 2nd.
Oh, is that the date they
Yeah,
said?
I believe it was 4/2, 2025.
Okay.
Now, that might have
No,
been
no, no. That's the date of the next Nintendo Direct.
of announcement. Okay, that
Yeah,
would make a lot more sense because I saw that
yeah.
and it was very early in Thursday, so maybe it was a little sleep out. But I saw that and I was like, "There's no like what?" They must have been having this like deep under wraps
But I
for
think that it will be second quarter. Like I'm guessing it'll probably come
really.
out in like May or June because the Switch came out in March.
Mm,
And what's exciting about that was that gave them 6 to 8 months to build inventory. Because
for the Christmas time.
some people will buy the Switch 2 on release day. It's gonna
Oh,
happen.
I bought the original on release day, so yeah, I'll
But
probably
that
get this one
gives
as well.
them, even if it comes out in June, let's say, that gives them a good 4 months to continue to build inventory on retailers' shelves or in a warehouse that they can send to retailers ahead of the holiday season, because that is the one thing that really hampered the initial adoption of the PlayStation 5 and even the Xbox, the Series X
Mhm.
especially. You get an S pretty easily, but a Series S, X, Xbox, or a PlayStation 5, they just didn't have.
Yeah.
Like literally, you had to find out what date that a specific store was getting a truck that would have a pallet with X number of consoles on it, and then get in line.
Yeah.
We camped out overnight one night at Best Buy. I was there, but the Switch was quickly adopted because there was inventory.
Oh yeah.
So I think that releasing it as soon as possible, because I mean I know we're January now, but anytime between that Nintendo Direct on 4/2 to like June, end of June, anytime in that window is probably the best time to release it.
I just really hope that the bad habits that we developed in the PS5 and the Xbox Series X do not transfer over to this. Like overbuying products to
Uh,
scalp. I know scalp's always been an issue, but for the PS5 and the Xbox, those seem
yeah,
particularly bad. And
because
then
the inventory was so low. Yeah,
exactly, yeah, yeah. And then the lack of inventory, like you had said, Nintendo is famously pretty good at that. So I
yeah,
hope they don't choose this to be the one to start sliding into the bad habits of their competitors.
yeah, me too. And Pepsi has announced a new flavor rolling out this month: wild cherry and cream Pepsi.
They lost me at the cream.
Yeah, because there's wild cherry Pepsi now,
Yeah, it is pretty good.
but they're adding the
Not,
cream to it.
I don't know. I
I've
just
not had a good. I mean, cream soda is different,
sure.
but like, I'm a Dr. Pepper drinker, so when they had the strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper, I thought I'm gonna give that a try, and the cream's never right. Unless you're going somewhere like a Sonic where like they can put coconut cream
Yeah, yeah,
directly into
yeah.
your drink, that's different. Bottling, packaging a cream
Like
drink
syrup,
in a soda,
probably. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
To me, that's yeah,
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of like the cream, just the cream flavoring
yeah.
really. Because you're right. Like at Sonic, when they have like the professionally made
Somebody sitting there
like
pumping it in,
concoction,
yeah,
like sure, like obviously that's gonna be great. But like the actual like pre-made in flavoring, I don't know, it just always seems like a little too like almost sickly sweet, which I know
yeah.
is laughable to say when you're
No,
already
it's
drinking
a
a
Pepsi
soda,
anyway, yeah,
but just I don't know, it's always been a little too much. So
yeah.
this one's probably gonna get a no from me.
But we'll find out, because if we can find one,
Oh,
by
just kidding.
golly,
It's not gonna be a no
we
from
will
me.
taste. Well, it might be
At the end,
it
sure.
most likely will be a no, but we are going to try to taste test one if we can get our hands on one of those. That is rolling out later on this month, January 20th,
Oh,
so not
dang.
too far from now,
Okay, yeah.
and it'll be in the full sugar and the zero sugar
Shoot, that's
varieties. So
yeah, that's next week.
yeah, so we can get a hold of one, by golly, we will let you
We'll
know
try it.
next week's show. And in other news, do you know what yacht rock is? Have you heard that phrase before?
I can probably put through context
It's
what it is,
it's
but
a genre of music, but
inform me, Joey.
well, no, go ahead, guess.
So if I had to
It's a
guess,
genre of music. I'm giving you
so
that. So
if I had to guess, we're talking about the highest of the highest caliber of music. We're
okay.
talking gold-plated guitars. We're talking drums, probably made out of dollar bills. We're talking the most expensive music you can produce,
And you came to that conclusion based on
based on purely that the word yacht is in
okay, that's not it.
there. Damn.
Yacht rock is a genre of music that, think of it in terms of this. If you owned a yacht
Okay.
and you were having a party on your yacht.
Okay.
So imagine Zach with no shirt on,
Woo.
swim trunks, and the sailor's cap, and
Mm.
he's piloting the the yachts, and there's all kinds
What a
of
fit.
women in their scantily clad bikinis and waiters bringing out plates with drinks on it and
I
stuff
assume Molly's there somewhere.
somewhere. Um, if that person wanted to rock out on their yacht, this is the type of music they would be listening
Okay.
to.
Okay.
It's typically like, were you? I think you were with us when we did the Dad Rock
Yeah.
episode a couple.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it? I think
Well,
last Father's Day or something like that. Yeah,
yes.
it's basically Dad Rock. It's like the
Okay.
Doobie Brothers. Like it's
Oh,
hard
okay.
rocking for people who don't rock.
So when you say like dad rock in this context, you don't mean like Disturbed or Creed or whatnot.
It's
Those are
like,
not yacht rock.
yeah, it's more like I said, like Doobie Brothers, Michael McDonald, even like Genesis with Phil Collins and stuff. They're like,
Okay.
we're talking like rock, but it's
Okay.
really more pop. But there's not a good spot for it in pop radio.
So like rock music that you wouldn't find at your like local dive bar or
It's not
anything.
going to be, yeah, and even the use of the word rock when they call it yacht rock,
Mm,
rock's kind of a misnomer. It's
interesting.
they probably think they're rocking out. They're not rocking.
Huh.
So anyhow,
Okay.
actor Rob Lowe recently revealed
Rob
on his
Lowe.
podcast, literally named his podcast, that back in the 1980s he recorded a yacht rock demo with the band
No
Toto,
way.
the band behind the song Africa. Got with Rob Lowe and made a yacht rock demo tape. Apparently, according to Rob Lowe, quote, "There was a minute in the 80s where I was definitely doing too much of Bolivian marching powder and just being a fucking lunatic. Coming at a time in a young actor's career where they're too old to play the roles they've been playing, but too young to play the roles that will last you the rest of your life, which are the really great ones. You can kind of feel it, and I love music so much, I got it into my head. Maybe I should think more about music. And I cut a demo with Toto. That's not to say that he was looking to join
Sure.
Toto. Toto, the band Toto, prior to becoming a band Toto, were all studio musicians. They're the guys that if Aretha Franklin comes in and is like, I got an idea for a song. I can sing the hell out of it. I need people to play the music in the studio for me so I can record it. That's what they were. They were session players. They were the guys, and they worked with some big acts. They worked with Michael Jackson, Cher, Diana Ross,
Oh
Barbara
wow.
Streisand, Donna Summer, Elton John, Olivia Newton-John, not related, Lionel Richie, Aretha Franklin. They were the sounds on those
Mm,
songs. If you're listening, it's not, Michael Jackson had a touring band, but it wasn't the ones that came in the studio and recorded the music. He had got studio
sure.
bands, a session player.
Yeah.
So he wasn't looking to join Toto, but he got
But
the best
yeah.
in the business to back him up.
Yeah.
It's just maybe his part of it wasn't the best in the
Yeah, I
business.
thought that was interesting because, like, down that list, again, guys, we got Donna Summer, Sir Elton John,
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin, and Rob Lowe.
Could you imagine what a coked up Rob Lowe yacht rock song
God, I mean,
would have sounded
yeah.
like?
So from what I understand, there was just a demo. This was never
Yeah,
publicly
yeah.
released.
Well, once they got the demo, it was probably like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's never going to see the light of day.
Us as Toto, I don't know if we want to attach ourselves to
Yeah,
this.
we're gonna film it or we're gonna record it under a totally different name. So yeah, Rob Lowe,
I mean, I gotta
yacht
like,
rock.
I would pay decent. I mean, I don't make that much, but like decent money to hear this, or
Yeah,
at least
I'd,
to
I'd
own a
listen to it
copy
once,
of the demo reel.
or
Oh
to know
wow,
somebody that had it, so that you didn't have to pay for
yeah, that's
it.
fair.
Yeah,
That's
maybe Rob Lowe will release it if there's
fair. I don't
enough
know though.
public pressure. Like at
What
some point, do
what
you
a thing
crack
to
and give
have
the
in the.
people?
I don't know though. Like what a thing to have in the living room. Like you have like guests come over, they're looking at like your
Yeah, hey guys,
measly
listen to
art that I
this.
got at Ross, and they're like, "Hey, what's that?" Like, oh,
Let me
let
put
me
it on.
tell you what this is.
This is the one of 3 copies
Yep.
of a Rob Lowe yacht rock demo. Let us know what stories grab your attention each and every week. Hit us up on social media. Again, you can find us at PGTC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon, X, all of the socials. I'm just going to start saying all the socials from now on
I think it's gonna be my personal goal
to
by
get through
next
it.
episode, not that, to actually look at what Mastodon is.
Well, it's a social media platform. I'm just telling you. Let us know what stories we should be looking at. If we read your story, the suggestion you give us, we'll give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's January, it's cold. We're going to be talking tropics, tropical islands when we get back.
What better place to do it?
That's right, from right here in Southwest Missouri. Don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to be right back right after this. Yeah. Zach will be right back.
I'll be right
Zach is readjusting. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you get a special bonus episode or a bonus to the episode. No, God, no. The adjustment has taken place.
Well, then that one was all for you, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. For the ladies or the gentlemen. Forget it. Whoever enjoyed it, that's who it was for.
Listen, I'm equal
That's right.
opportunity.
Exactly. All right, let's come back. You guys are seeing all the cool stuff that happens behind the scenes. Thanks to Charmin for sponsoring this week's episode.
Yeah, very, very appropriate.
Yes. Whenever it's icy cold out, you got to have milk, bread, and toilet paper. So
All three
Charmin,
essentials.
perfect timing for Charmin to come in with that sponsorship this
And who
week.
better than Charmin?
That's right.
Exactly.
It is wintertime. We know it sucks. So let's say you're looking to get away. Okay, so picture in your mind. I will paint a picture in the theater of the mind. You come with this. Yes.
Got it.
Let's say you're headed down south on a cruise ship. You're taking a cruise, a tropical vacation cruise to get away from the January nasty cold.
Am I listening to Yacht Rock?
If you choose to.
Okay.
I bet they play some Yacht Rock on the cruise ship.
Specifically Rob Lowe.
Yes. That's the only place you're going to find it. Carnival Cruise Line bought the one demo. All right. You're on your way and your cruise ship crashes.
Oh no.
It's sinking. You alone find yourself stuck on a tropical deserted island. Okay. So imagine the island, the one palm tree, the person sitting there watching the waves. You are on a deserted island. It doesn't have to be that small. It could be a big one.
I don't know if you told me to close my eyes, but I am.
Yes. Okay. But all is not lost.
Oh.
There just happened to be on this particular cruise ship, it's a new thing they were trying out, a wide variety of fast food available to you. So they would have
kind of like a food court.
Yeah, you could have like Arby's, you could have Burger King, you could have Taco Bell, McDonald's, whatever. And so when your boat's going down, there's nothing coming. If you're going to get rescued, it's not going to be an immediate thing.
Okay.
So you get an opportunity in the time that the boat is sinking, because it doesn't go down immediately, to grab a little bit of fast food.
Okay.
That you're going to take with you, and that's going to sustain you on this deserted island until the Coast Guard, whoever shows up to rescue you.
Okay.
The question this week that we are going to address is what three? Should we do three? Or should we do four? Let's do four.
Okay.
What 4 fast food items would you grab to take with you on a deserted island? We'll just go back and forth. I'll let you start. You pick one, I'll pick one, and we'll just bounce back and forth. 4 items from fast food restaurants, chains, whatever, that you grab to sustain you on this desert island. And I'll even say you have as much of it as you want.
That was my following
I'll even say you can have as much as you want. So what 4 items are you grabbing?
So number one, and this should be a surprise to no one because I feel like it'll probably be on a lot of people's quintessential list.
Okay.
It'll definitely be, the Crunchwrap Supreme, Taco Bell. It's the goat. It's the goat. It's crunchy, cheesy, has plenty of depth into it, if you want to call it that. And like
depth of flavor, yes.
And I think
somebody's been watching British Bake British cooking shows.
It's lovely.
Yes.
No, it's honestly probably, at least objectively, one of the greatest fast food items out there.
Okay. The Crunchwrap Supreme. And once somebody takes a pick, nobody else can have that pick. Okay.
No Crunchwrap Supreme for you.
That's right. I will, with my first pick, I'm going to go a different direction. It is Deserted Island. I could potentially rig up, if I had the correct tools, a way to collect condensation and let that drip down into it to make water.
Oh.
But boy, that sounds like a pain in the ass.
It does.
And I'm reliant on something that would allow that, like a tarp, a piece of plastic, or something.
I'm already gonna have to build like a hut or something.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to have to make water also. I'm gonna need water while I'm building my hut, right?
Yeah.
So rather than water, I'm going to go with, we talked about Sonic earlier, I'm going to go with a Diet Dr. Pepper from Sonic.
Okay.
With vanilla flavoring added.
Okay, classic.
Because that's something I go with anyway.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You got to stay hydrated. You don't know how long you're going to be out there.
Yeah, it's the Joey Mills original. You can't go without it.
If you've got to be hydrated, let's get the best that fast food has to offer. Most places, it's going to be like a Coke product or a Pepsi product, or if you're lucky, they've got the button and you can just push all the buttons. It's like hitting the slot machine jackpot. Hey, I got a soda flavor, the combination that worked.
Okay.
But most of the time, you just want something that's good, that's going to stick with you. You get the Sonic, it's just Diet Dr. Pepper, but they squirt in a little bit of vanilla. and it's got that
Just
Sonic
that
Ice.
nice little note.
Mm,
Ooh, I forgot all about the Sonic Ice.
I'm going with the Sonic Diet Dr Pepper
Did I? And
with
I might
vanilla.
have. This is a little bit of an offshoot, but like,
Yeah,
did I imagine that they started selling Sonic Ice?
you can buy Sonic Ice.
You
Yeah,
can. Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I
we
thought.
have a ice maker though that makes it
That
here.
makes
Oh
it.
yeah,
Oh
it's on
God,
the counter. Yeah,
this place is great, guys.
yeah. You believe me? There's all kinds of cool stuff hidden in this house.
So number two for me.
Number two for you.
Number two for me. Now I'm getting a little generous. I consider this place fast food, but if I'm not, you can correct me.
Yeah,
Um,
we're pretty generous in our categories
can
here.
and I will ask, can I choose
Uh-huh.
a technically discontinued product?
I'll allow
Recently
it. I'll
discontinued.
allow it. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Then I would pick the you're familiar with Hot Ones, correct?
Correct.
So the Hot Ones branded spicy orange chicken from Panda Express.
So Panda Express, spicy hot ones, spicy orange chicken
Spicy
wings.
orange chicken. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit biased to it because I absolutely love the show Hot Ones.
Right.
So obviously, I was going into it already probably going to enjoy it. But when I ate it, it was the perfect marriage of sweet and spicy.
Really.
Had enough a bit of a kick to it that I could even distinguish it, and yet still has the classic orange chicken that Panda Express not only created and popularized, but
Right.
is known for.
Yep.
And it's just, if I am going to be stuck on a deserted island and just going to be in the dumps, I would at least like to be sad eating that spicy orange chicken.
And the good thing is, though it's been discontinued, they happen to have a bunch of it on this cruise ship. So you
Man,
home
how
free on this
lucky
one.
can you
I'm
be?
telling you.
I mean, I'm not too lucky because I'm on a
That might have
deserted
been
island, but
that might have been why you booked the trip to begin with. You
uh,
might have seen that and been like, "Ooh, they're
I
gonna have
mean,
that there."
knowing me, yeah, absolutely.
All right. So for my second pick, I am going to. So I've got something to drink. I'm well
Okay.
hydrated, but it's hot out here.
Mm.
I'm gonna go with a Wendy's Frosty
Okay.
for my second pick.
A lot of liquids in yours,
You got to stay hydrated
I suppose.
and you got to stay cooled off. The Frosty, assuming there's a way to continue to keep them cold. That's what suspension of disbelief here.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, you've got to go with Frosty. Now you could have made an argument for a multitude of other desserts.
Hmm.
However, nobody's servicing those ice cream machines.
No, you're right.
But a Frosty is a Frosty. You
I
never go to a Wendy's and they're like, we don't have
about
Frosties.
to say the day that the frosting machine does not work, the rest of the world will crumble.
And you get your chocolate that way.
Ooh,
You get a little chocolate, you
okay.
get a little
A little
cold.
indulgence. I
Yeah.
love that.
So I'm going with a Frosty. You have
Okay.
two picks left.
Got two more picks left.
Yes.
So my next one, I feel like I do have to do a drink at some point, but I feel like
Mhm.
I drink mostly just water or tea, so I don't really think that's going to be too much of an inhibitor.
Mhm.
So I will say I want to preface this by saying that this next one I understand is not the best version of this sandwich,
Okay.
but it is my favorite version,
Okay.
and that would be the Reuben from Arby's.
The Arby's Reuben,
There
really.
is something that it is impossible to describe because the catharsis that I get when I eat a Reuben from Arby's is truly one like none like any other.
Okay.
So I would say again, if I am at an all-time low, stuck on an island for God knows when, how long, a Reuben from Arby's might just be the one that keeps me hanging on.
Okay. Not bad.
Got real serious for that one. I don't know why.
While we're at Arby's, I'm gonna pick up the curly fries.
All right, we got some solid food, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen.
Everybody loves a potato. You can do so much with a potato, but has anybody ever done anything with a potato that's better than the Arby's curly
I
fries?
honestly, I think the only closest would be the fries from Jack in the Box. And as much as I love
Mm,
Jack in the Box, I think Arby's clutches it.
I do too. So I'm going with the Arby's
Okay,
curly fries.
sure.
Your fourth and final pick.
Final pick. Now, this next one, I do. I'm just going to straight out ask you because this one I'm a little bit debating if it really qualifies as fast food. Does a gas station qualify as fast food? Like I know they.
It's convenience food. I think you can pick a gas station food. Here's the caveat.
Okay.
Can't be prepackaged stuff in the aisles. Has to be from like the roller or their
Okay.
version of a deli. You know
Well,
what I'm
well,
saying?
then this definitely is. Then
Okay.
this is something that I actually got put on this weekend, and I am in love with.
Okay.
Like I will make sure I consume one of these at least once a week until I am in the ground.
Okay.
It is the breakfast pizza from Casey's.
Ooh, okay.
I have heard tales of it.
Yep.
There are complete Reddit pages dedicated to it, and I all thought, hoopla.
Yep.
It's totally not worth it. Made the jump. I can't go back.
Fair enough.
Now, Joey Mills,
Fourth and final pick.
here it is.
Well,
That hold on.
yeah.
We are coupling with 2 drinks and a side. So this is
No, a drink, a dessert,
a dessert.
and a side.
So this is your entree.
Yes.
Okay, what's the entree?
And it's tough because you
Okay.
think about, you've got to have your protein. You got to
Mhm.
have your veggies. You got to have your carbs, your fats. You're trying to be as fairly as nutritious as you can be on this deserted island.
Okay.
How do you pull that off on a deserted island? Luckily,
I mean, I already stole the Crunchwrap from you, so
you
I don't
did.
know.
I am going with the deep dish super supreme pizza from Pizza Hut. You
That's a
get your
decent one.
you get your meats on there, you
Ah,
get your veggies on there, you got your cheese, you got your the crust is your carb. That is
man, that's a ooh, because you have it all right there.
Mhm.
I was thinking
It's a whole meal.
I was thinking Shirley, I'll give you 3 days, and if you're not rescued, you're gonna start eating the natives. But like
Are there natives
that,
on this island?
I mean, I assume.
I feel like if they're natives, they're gonna be like, "What's that? Let's go see what that guy's got over there."
But that's a pretty versatile one.
You
I'm
gotta go with
impressed. You nailed it.
versatility. All right. So to recap, Zach went with the Crunchwrap Supreme,
Woo-hoo.
the Panda Express Hot Ones Spicy Orange Chicken Wings,
Underrated.
the Arby's Reuben, and a breakfast pizza from Casey's. Zach will be plugged up
I will be
and
plugged
not
up. Yeah,
poop
yeah, yeah.
for the entire time that he's looking for this protein.
See that's one thing I didn't really think
No,
about.
no
Lots of
vegetation there.
yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah. Lots of
Yeah,
yeah.
your colon will not be
Well,
thanking you for that.
I mean, assuming I survive the island, that's
Oh yeah,
later
we're
Zach's
making
problem.
that. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
making that assumption.
yeah,
Later, Zach can get some
yeah.
Metamucil.
Exactly.
I went with the vanilla Diet Dr Pepper from Sonic, a Wendy's Frosty, Arby's curly fries. Get a slice, you get your
Yeah.
fries, and that Super Supreme Pizza from Pizza Hut deep dish. Those are our picks.
What I will say is your list is definitely the more well-rounded.
Oh yeah,
Like I feel like that's a pretty satisfying
dude.
dinner
You could take this list and just go
and just get it.
and
Yeah.
just that's like a Friday night when
Yeah.
the wife and kids are out doing something else and you're like, oh, I'm home by myself. I'll figure out something to eat. I'm hitting up 4 stop. I'm hitting up 3 places and I'm calling in a delivery
Yeah.
order. So and I'll call the delivery first so they can get that going.
Yeah.
While I hit up, there's a Sonic right over there. Go down, hit Wendy's and Arby's are right there next to each other. I'm back here before the pizza gets here.
The way I'm seeing it is like if I walked in and saw you eating that, I wouldn't think anything of it.
You'd
It'd
be
like,
like,
oh,
dude, is that for all of us?
that's a solid combo.
Is
If you
this for
walked
the table? Or?
if you walked into my place and noticed me eating all of my stuff,
Be
you
like,
would have
oh.
think something's gone deeply wrong
Yeah,
in his life.
Zach is depressed that he's stuck on this island. He's eating only comfort food. Yeah. Well, that's the way we see it. Let us know what you guys think. What 3, 4, 1, just any number, fast food items would you want to have with you on a deserted island? Again, making all kinds of assumptions that there's a way to prepare it, there's a way to heat it, there's a way to cool it, all of that stuff. That's all taken care of. You can assume all of that. Again, hit us up on social media. All the social medias at PGTC Podcast. Let us know what you would take with you. If we read your comments, we'll give you a shout out. You can post if you're doing this on the YouTube, just post it in the comments on the YouTube video.
Yeah.
We'll read them all.
Right down below.
That's right. Coming up this weekend in entertainment pop culture, Wolfman. New in theaters.
Wolfman.
Do you have any interest in seeing this
I
film?
mean, so obviously it was a little before my time, the
Right.
original,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I'm interested. Like I mean, Nosferatu technically before my time, and I
Right.
watched the original,
Yeah.
loved it. So excited to see the remake. So Wolfman, I don't know, I feel it's got potential.
I feel like this director, producer, this team did a really good job with Invisible Man,
Mhm.
which was not seen because it
Because he's
came out
invisible.
and it came out in theaters like as COVID was hitting. Like theaters are shutting down the weekend that it
Right.
came
Yeah,
out.
I forgot
So
about that.
and it wasn't one that they could instantly pivot and like, okay, let's throw it on a streamer real quick then. Just what you could buy it digital download, but who wants to do
Who
that?
does that? Yeah.
But this Wolfman, I'm not sold. And to be fair, I wasn't immediately sold on the concept of revisiting Invisible Man, especially with the way they approached it, a more modern take. But the Wolfman one, man, everything I've seen does not
Really?
have me rushing out to theaters. Like we've not gotten a good full look, and we may never, of the final transformation, the character of the Wolfman. But what little bit we have seen here and there, whether it's from trailers, whether it's from, still photos from sets, it just doesn't look good. And if you don't have a really good looking Wolfman, then it kind of falls apart on
Kind of
you.
takes it out of you.
Like there are
It takes you
movies,
out of it, rather.
there are movies that are really not good, but they've got a good creature design and a fantastic transformation sequence, especially when you go back to some of those older practical stuff and not the CG stuff. And you can suspend disbelief. You can
Sure.
put aside the fact that this story makes no sense because this is pretty cool. I want it's the Godzilla thing, right? You don't watch Godzilla for the human story
Sure.
about that plucky little
Yeah.
person that's going to make it out of the carnage. You watch it to watch a giant lizard destroy a city,
Destroy it.
right?
Which in some of the more recent ones, I feel like they're
Pick a
finally
city. Yeah,
getting. They're
pick a city.
finally getting that concept.
But there's a whole big Pacific Ocean with a lot of stuff covering it. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, with the Wolfman though, you're there for the carnage, right? You're
Yeah.
there for the creature design. You want it to look good. You want that body horror of the transformation
Mhm.
sequence. You want to sit there going, oh god, that looks like it hurts. And you want the ones where you can hear like bones snapping and tendons stretching and stuff because it makes it even gooier and worse. And then you want to see that thing just go buck wild,
Oh,
right?
sure.
This one it just doesn't feel. It looks like it's a small, more secluded. Like it feels more like a one-room play. It's like, hey, it's a family
Really.
of three in a cabin. That's all they've shown us in the trailers.
Hmm.
They haven't shown us a good look at a good creature. And I'm not saying you have to show us the creature design now,
Yeah, you
but
don't want to.
you've gotta give us something, some morsel, something tantalizing. It's almost like if you have a bad creature design, you're better off just not even teasing it. Just let us see it when we see it, and
Yeah,
then be disappointed in the theater after you've already gotten our
but you already
money.
got our money, so
Exactly,
like
as
nothing. Like, yeah,
opposed to seeing this and going, it'll definitely be a wait for streaming one for me.
really.
Yeah.
I think the at least the solace in this is that like Dracula, Wolfman, these other like very classic
Mhm.
creatures. I mean, they've been around forever. So like even if this interpretation of Wolfman doesn't make you happy, I mean, give it 15, 20 years, you'll get another attempt.
Yeah,
Somebody else will try to reboot it or make a different version, and maybe then that'll be the good one.
and I feel like with Nosferatu, we have learned, if Hollywood has learned anything, they usually learn the wrong thing when there's something going on. When there's a big success, they learn the wrong lesson from it. If they learn anything from Nosferatu, it's that I hope what they take away is that you don't have to make it hyper modern. It doesn't have to be with cell phones and technology. You
Yeah.
can tell a classic throwback period piece, a gothic story. And Nosferatu again, still what number 4 in the box? It's still in the top 5. Um, so maybe if you're going to do the whatever's next, we've had vampires, we've had invisible men, we've had wolfmen. Now, if Frankenstein or like a creature from the black, if those are your next steps, do them as period pieces
Mhm.
because especially with like either of those two characters, Frankenstein can be we've assembled this thing, back in the 1800s, 19th century stuff, and he's been frozen on ice. And
Yeah.
now we thawed him out. And if you're buying the fact that we put together a bunch of pieces and made a man and made him live, you can buy the fact that he's frozen in ice and now he's thawed out
Yeah.
and he's still alive. Or like a creature from the Black Lagoon can be hey, this thing was an old, whatever. It was the next step from dinosaurs, lizards towards humans, and that line got cut off. But here's a few that still survived enough at least to continue to breed so that we have one for this movie. So if you have to go modern, at least there's a. But I would say even with that one, just keep it in like the 50s. Keep it in.
Because
Give us that feeling of
yeah.
like because right now I can Google Map just about anything in the world. Like
Mhm.
there's not a lot of wonder left in the world. There's a lot of things we don't understand,
Sure.
but there's not a lot of magic, not a lot of that's cool. So take us back to when that existed. Take us back even just to the 50s. Take us back to, post World War II. Even,
Yeah.
just give us that atomic age where everybody's filled with optimism and we're going to go out there and we're going to conquer the world and we're going to conquer this world and then we're going to go to space and conquer all the
Mhm.
worlds. But there's still so much of this world that we don't know. So let's go to the jungles and find this cool stuff and
Yeah.
give us something like that as opposed to, oh yeah, it's the Invisible Man. It's all mirrors and technology and synthetic fibers that allow you to cloak yourself and
Yeah, yeah,
it's fine,
it
but
takes me out of it a little
that's not
bit.
an invisible man. I need somebody drinking a potion
It's the concealed man.
because an invisible man with technology unzips, steps out of the suit, and you're a normal human being. Part of the Invisible Man is that whole like I'm invisible and now I'm losing my mind because there is no quick and easy fix. I can't
Yeah.
unzip it and step out. I'm Invisible Man.
It takes away a little bit
Somebody's
of
got
the
to brew
drama
a
and intrigue.
concoction here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel like if they're going to do something like that, as they continue to revisit these older classic films, movie monsters, give us those classic movie monsters like Nosferatu did. Over on Apple TV Plus, Severance season 2 premieres this week. Heard great things about it. Haven't had a chance to
I've
watch
heard
it, but
of it. I
yeah,
haven't heard
it's
like
kind
too
of a
much about it.
sci-fi, mind twisty kind of thing.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah. Albuquerque Comic Con and Central Florida Comic Con both kick off today, Friday, and run through Sunday. So if you are in the neighborhood of either of
Go
those, go
check them
check them
out.
out. Absolutely. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is out now for the Nintendo Switch. Were you a big Donkey Kong country guy?
So later in life, when it first came out, or at least around the time, wasn't too big into video games at that point because I was still a wee little
Right.
lad.
Yeah.
Then I visited it on some sort of platform that I got moved to, and did not like it just because of the sheer difficultness of
Yeah.
it.
It's a platformer.
But now, as an adult, thankfully, speaking of the Nintendo Switch, we have
Right.
that online that gives us a lot of the classic Nintendo
Hmm.
games. I have since revisited the original and then Donkey Kong 2, Diddy's Return, or something along
Yeah.
those lines. And I
Not
can,
that Diddy.
not that Diddy,
Just make sure
um,
we clear the air here.
and I can see it for the beauty and the, I mean, prevalence that it is. I mean, it's a very tight, very responsive game
Hmm.
that, does demand a lot out of players, but I can see why it's so influential.
Yeah. So they've remade it, just up the graphics a little
Looks
bit.
beautiful.
Looks fantastic. And if you liked it, I'm sure it'll
Yeah.
be just as good as the last time. And Dynasty Warriors Origins out this weekend on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox if you're into that. Sunday is National Popcorn Day. Are you a popcorn guy?
Well, I mean, I worked at a movie theater for 10 years,
But do you
so
have
I,
you burnt out on the? Are you a
oh,
popcorn guy?
I still see it sometimes when I close my eyes.
Okay,
Like,
good.
yeah, no, popcorn's not my jam anymore.
Okay, fair enough. So you will not be
I
celebrating
will
on
not be
Sunday.
celebrating.
Fair enough.
Starkly against it.
Yep. And again, a reminder, I know we mentioned this earlier, next convention coming up for us, Little Rock Anime Fest. That's on February 1st and 2nd. You can check out the entire guest list, get your advanced discount tickets at littlerockanimefest.com. It's funny how that works. Hopefully, we'll see you there. If you can't make it down to Little Rock, if you're local to where we are, MissouriComicCon.com. You can get tickets for that. Check out that guest list. It is huge guest list. We are still figuring out who's going to do exactly what because there are so many great guests coming. But we're gonna have fun with it. It's always a good
We'll
time.
figure
But
it out.
this one's gonna be a lot of fun, I think. Anything else you got before we get
I
out of
don't
here?
think too
All right.
much. I mean, there's a lot of shows that we still have to prep for, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
super exciting. I mean, it's really taking, it's really allowed me to take stock in just how grateful I am that we get to do what we get to do. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when I was a kid, this was all I ever dreamed of doing, and now look at us. We're here having our own show, doing the shows. Like it's just a lot to be grateful for.
It is.
So uh, that with being prepping for shows as well as my yoga classes are picking back up,
Oh
and
yeah.
then of
First of the
course,
year, are you seeing that big rush
yeah,
of like, hey,
oh
everybody's
yeah,
gonna get healthy,
yeah,
and then
everybody.
February it'll be back to the same
I'm
old timers.
hoping that I provide enough with the Tai Chi and the yoga that keeps people coming back. But yes, we definitely got that rush in
The
January.
January rush.
Otherwise, just more Great British Bake Off and seeing what other
Uh,
video game and other shenanigans I can get into. What about you, Joey?
fair enough. A lot of con work,
Mhm.
a lot of con prep. It's funny, we work with so many different con companies and stuff. Like one company's like, I just want you to show up. Here's what you're gonna do. Some it's, hey, give us some, back and forth. Some it's like, here's the list, figure it out. Let
Just
us
do
know
it
what you came up
yourself.
with. So you tell us what exactly we can do with these people that we've already invited out to the show. It's fun though. You get
Yeah,
you
it's
get a
good.
little, you get to
A little
touch
bit
all
more
of it.
agency with it.
Yeah, you get to touch everything this way. So yeah. Well, stick around after the break. Again, we are chatting with Adrian Carter. He is the host of Nerd at Heart over on YouTube. You should check them out as well. Kind of in the same space we are. Adrian was able to fill in for me on a moment's notice
Yeah,
at Central Carolina Comic Con last weekend. We just talked about the convention stuff, and we've been doing this for so long. For me personally, and I'm not going to speak for you, but you may find something similar. I forget what it was like to be new to this, and so it's a different energy. There's still an energy. The minute this does become not fun, I will stop.
sure.
But it is to the point we've moved past like this is brand new to me. Oh my God, this is cool. Oh, to now it's the job, and that's not saying that as a bad thing. Not
Yeah.
not every job is terrible, but the minute it's like okay, this is work, like I'm not enjoying this, then I'm gonna bounce. But we're at the point where it's like this is kind of we know the road
Know what to
ahead of us.
expect.
Yeah.
I would agree. Like I had mentioned, this was my dream. This is all
Mhm.
I've ever wanted to do, and so now doing it, awesome. But I mean, again, this I've been doing this for about 8 years
Yep.
now, and so now when I started, and God knows when I was a kid, if I knew that I was going to be emceeing for shows that have full audience, large auditoriums filled, oh my gosh, I'd be losing my mind.
Yep.
Now when we see that, we're like, oh,
Oh,
cool,
good. Hey,
awesome.
that person's a good draw.
Yeah, like awesome. Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
that's
This will be
it.
this will
Huh,
be a
I'll
great
be.
show. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then just go about it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and just handle your business. It
there's just
becomes yeah,
a little bit of
rote.
a natural desensitized.
Yeah. So it's fun to talk to somebody who had never done a Comic Con main stage, emceed with guests. He's does the YouTube show. He has public speaking background, but
Mhm.
to find out to remember to hear from somebody who's like this was the first time I didn't get 2 weeks to prep. To hear his side of like here's how it went and here's what I ran into and it was it was what it was. It's fun to get that every once in a while to
Sure.
pull that
Yeah.
back and because like I said we can sit here and talk inside baseball on what's coming up what are we because we know what to expect but for somebody who's never done this to be able to hear somebody who's never done
Yeah.
this like here's what it was
And talk about
it's a lot of
what
fun.
a first show too.
Oh yeah, it
Like
was a
a
good show.
bunch of heavy hitters were at that show,
Yep.
and from what I hear, he nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a great job with us. So check that out. We will be talking with Adrian right after this next little break. If you don't stick around for some reason, and again, this will be audio and video. So
Mhm.
if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll get to watch the Zoom recording. If you're just listening to the podcast, you'll get it. There's for some reason there's a little bit of feedback. I don't know if it's a Zoom thing or what. I
Oh,
need to
maybe.
figure it out, but you can still check out what's going on. It's not unlistenable or unwatchable. But in the meantime, we're going to get out of here.
Get out of you guys' hair.
One more show in the books. We'll be back next week with another brand new episode of the Pop Goes Culture Podcast. Until then, be safe, be healthy, be happy. We will talk to you guys later. See ya.
See you guys next time.
All right, we are joined today by Adrian Carter. The reason Adrian's on here now, correct me if at any point I get any part of this wrong. You were going to go to Central Carolina Comic Con to get a table to talk about your podcast, right? To all the people walking by, hey, check out my show, check out my show. I've been there and done that. That was the purpose.
Yeah.
That's why you were involved, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was the original intent. We actually, I guess they have something of a lottery system that they did, and we won that. Surprise, surprise. And we were already, like I was buying banners and going, what am I going to do? And all of this. And that was the plan.
And then the plans changed
They
because
certainly did.
so weather kept me from being there, and typically I'm emceeing the main stage. So with me not being there and kind of knowing ahead of time, watching the weather forecast, like we better have a backup plan. You became the backup plan, which turned into Plan A once Saturday rolled around. Now
That's right.
So once you got that call, once you got the hey man, you're up to bat, you're pinch
Yeah.
hitting for us. What went through your head?
It was just a lot of things. I mean, I'm not like completely new to public speaking, so it wasn't. I think it was just like, oh, first it was just kind of a sense of shock in the sense knowing, oh, I have to do something now.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? So, I don't know. It took it for a little bit. It was a bit of a haze of just trying to think, okay, I've got a lot to think about here, and I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what would be the best way to describe it, but I don't know if panic would be the word, but I definitely was feeling the pressure of the situation because I had not expected that to happen. I think prior to that, we had kind of agreed, maybe I would do a panel or two,
Right.
So that maybe you can go have some lunch or something,
Which is
like
always
that.
nice to have. Yeah.
And then it just kind of turned into, oh, well, yeah, don't worry about that.
Oh, you'll get your panels in. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, you wanted to do this? Have at
Here
it.
you go. Yeah, thrown into the fire. Yeah, because I know I usually take a while ahead of time to prep. Get to know what each get, why the guest is there, what they're known
Yeah.
for, what are some of the things. I'll even sometimes go back and like look at news
Yeah.
articles about, oh, they were at this convention and talked about this, so we probably don't want to repeat ourselves, but maybe we can
Exactly.
expand on that. So, what was kind of your process? I mean, you had to all at once. You've got to
Oh,
prep for like what, almost like 10
yeah.
panels or so.
Yeah, I've got a 9 to 5. So,
Mhm.
I think when I got the message, it was, bright and early morning, still, I just started work. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the picture that you sent me of your front yard. I'm like, huh.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And after that, I just kind of started looking around and just trying to find some information. Just like you, I mean, it's impossible to know who everybody is. And I haven't watched everything that every one of these people have been on, and all the guests have been on, but I started to do some research. Funny enough, you were talking about that, and I did that. My first the first guest that we had was
Was it Karen?
Karen. It was
Yeah.
Karen, yeah, and she, and I found out who she was. And I did a little. I actually listened to some of the information that I heard about her. Some of the process interviews. And I started thinking about, what are the things that she would, and I got like, I got a stack of these,
Yep.
got
Yeah.
these,
I know how
wrote,
yeah, I know what those work.
wrote all of that down, and then promptly forgot it the day I left.
Awesome. I've done that
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
I had
Uh,
everything else though,
yeah. Well, and you'd already
but
looked at it. You'd written it out. So if nothing else, you kind of knew
sure,
it's just maybe not everything.
sure, I wasn't
So
nervous and forgetting everything. No,
yeah,
that's
right. Yeah, not at all.
fine.
So part of the reason I wanted to talk to you too is so me and then my podcast partner Zach, we've done this for so long, we kind of forget
hmm
what it's like doing this for the first time because it's been
Yeah.
years since either of us have done this for the first time.
hmm
Again, you got a podcast, you're public speaking, you've got that background, but it is a little
Yes.
different. What was it like for you hosting the main stage at Central Carolina Comic Con last weekend for as a first
Well,
time MC doing that? What was it like? What was your experience?
you know what? Overall, I'm just gonna say it was an absolute blast. I had a great time. The thing I always find is, like I said, I have a lot of background in this,
Mhm.
so it's in one form or the other, and I've spoken, internationally. I've done this and that and blah blah blah, but it was, honestly, once I got the ball rolling,
Mhm.
that's when it just kind of snapped a bit. I'm not saying, I mean, there's no way that I've got the technique down and everything,
Right.
but it was pretty good. I mean, overall, I felt pretty comfortable. I
Mhm.
was nervous, a little bit. What's funny is I was more, because I was so focused on what I was trying to do, that, sometimes when you met like some of the bigger guests, let's say bigger guests, you didn't have time to think about, who am I talking to?
Oh
you know,
yeah. Yep.
it's like, I'm here. Okay. Hey, everybody, you want to come on up? Let's ask the panelists some question. I'm sure, this is your time. Let's get it up here. Go do
Yep.
this.
Was there anyone in
Um,
particular that you were really like, maybe not starstruck's not the right word, but was there anyone that you were like, wow, I can't believe I'm sharing a stage with this person or her or these people or anything like that? Was there anybody in particular that you were like, wow, this is pretty cool?
there was a couple of people that I really, it was real surreal kind of experience because, um, and honestly, I was impressed by every guest that came on there, in one way or another, but I'm a huge TMNT fan, and I tell you what, and even just with TMNT, I'm a huge Rob Paulson fan. So I love Rob Paulson. I love his work. I've been listening, ever since I really kind of learned about who Rob Paulson was and what he did. I was a huge fan of him, and I was so stoked. And the only thing that ever kind of came through my head a little bit was don't talk, never meet your heroes. You never hear
Right.
that phrase.
Yep.
And that is not the case with him.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
is absolutely everything you want him to be in that moment.
Yeah, he is one of the sweetest guys out there.
Yeah, I know. And then, I was over there at his booth, and I got to watch him work for a while.
Yeah.
And his line does not move quickly, but the thing is that every person that leaves that line feels like they have had, I mean, don't feel like it. They have had a moment with him.
Absolutely.
And it's unique and individual. But anyways, it was him. The other one was Gates McFadden, because I'm a big Trekker, and absolutely was just stoked, that I got to meet her.
Awesome.
And then there were just, like I said, other people that really impressed me and even inspired me to start looking at some of the material that they produce.
Awesome. Any highlights from the weekend in particular? Anything that like you saw, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from the stage. It could be this really cool cosplay or this cool interaction I was a part of or I observed. I happened to be walking by and I saw this. Anything in particular jump out to you as a highlight from the weekend for you?
Let's see. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. The first day was just packed in the main stage. And unfortunately, the main stage was separate from the main room.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't get to see a whole lot that was on that side. The second day, a little bit more laid back, fewer panels.
Yep.
Which actually kind of worked out. It allowed me to get to my table for a little bit.
That's nice.
Get to promote that podcast.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, there was the Ghostbuster group. So there was a couple of chapters of the Ghostbusters on the other side. The local Columbia, South Carolina unit, and I think the greater South Carolina one. And then they were really cool, and they had an awesome setup. Let's see. The cosplay thing was that was a different experience.
Yeah.
The part that I remember most is being told I have to vamp for about like 5 to 10 minutes, while they make and I'm like, I have to who? I have to what? Sorry.
Yep.
And nobody told me about this one. So, but I think I mentioned when we kind of talked a little bit, I said, oh, somebody mentioned something about cosplay karaoke, and that saved my life. So, but I had a blast with that. I really enjoyed some of the costumes and the creativity that these people had. There was, some real standouts, and I took some pictures. I don't think they all made it on the site, but man, there was there was some really fantastic cosplay going on. Some of the guests that I really enjoyed getting to listen to. I mean, obviously Paulson and Gordon, but I mean, them withstanding. I think I was really kind of impressed sitting next. Laz Alonso was a really awesome guest and really talk to his crowd. Andy Black was oh man, like that was the easiest one.
Yeah.
I just kind of like, hey, and it was off to the races, but I think to me, like, it's hard to just pick one thing that really kind of stood out. I thought the entire experience is noteworthy, and I'm still kind of coming down from it a little bit,
Did you have this moment? I had this moment early on when I was doing this moment when you're walking through Walmart or whatever, and like, man, these people have no idea what I just did this weekend, who I talked to, who I was, the kind of this weird, like, you're back to the normal 9 to 5, you're back to the grind, but you're still got that smile plastered on your face. Like, guys, I was on stage with Gates McFadden this weekend.
Well, I don't know, because I'm telling everybody.
Okay.
I hosted a Comic-Con. Who are you? Get away. But And I absolutely understand what you mean. It was it was just it was a blast, and it's hard to kind of describe, kind of what you did, and the opportunity you get to meet some really kind of cool people, in front and behind the stage,
Mhm.
you know, uh, and what's funny is things just never are quite the way you think they are,
Yep.
in one way or another.
Mhm.
And gosh, and I made sure like my son was popping around here and there, and and but it was, yeah, it really is like I am right now. I'm still sitting here going, I walk into my work and it's like I almost kind of want to shout it, like "Ah!"
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody would listen, but it was great. It really
Awesome.
was.
Well, you were there to promote the podcast. You didn't get a chance to sit at your table very much. So this is a second opportunity. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, because you play in the same realm that we play in.
Yeah, exactly. So the name of my podcast is Nerd at Heart. I co-host it with another guy named Patrick Kramer. We work together. We usually talk about geek news and things like that as well. But one of our big focuses is the reason why we call it Nerd at Heart is because we want to talk to individuals and what makes them a nerd at heart.
Mhm.
So the whole idea is to come on, tell us what you nerd out about. We've had people who are Disney nerds, and we've even invited people who guest on the show to sit with us on the news,
Mhm.
or stuff like that as well. But it kind of gives everybody a moment to kind of come in and get in front of others and talk about what it is that really, drives them, or just that they absolutely love and obsess over. And we luckily enough, on the first day I had a couple of volunteers, actually people we had guested with before, volunteered and watched the table, and they were actually able to get quite
Good.
a few people, and so we're in the process of starting to set everybody up to start coming in, but we always need more.
Yeah.
We always need to talk to more people,
Yep.
and give everybody at least 15 minutes or so,
Yeah.
and give them that opportunity to talk. And honestly, like, it doesn't matter what the interest is. That's the thing. It's not the interest that we're interested in. We're interested in what it is to you,
Exactly. Yeah.
So, like I'm planning to go, I think in April or March or something, there's a car show near here. These are people that are going to tell you about their cars. I've had somebody, one of the guys he's a big Vikings fan. So that's why, I mean, he was talking about the Vikings for a minute, and it's like, I don't know what that is, but okay, great.
I'm glad you like it.
I'm glad
That,
you like it. Tell us about it, and we'll let everybody else hear it.
yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you stepping
My
in over the
pleasure.
weekend, and then, of course, making time to talk today as well. So, again, that was Nerd at Heart. Check that out wherever podcasts are sold. It's free. So,
Yeah,
check
right
it
now, yeah, it's YouTube and Facebook, guys.
Yeah.
Get on there, and eventually we'll make it audio.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks again, Adrian, for your time. I will let you go. Thanks again for stepping in this past weekend. I appreciate it. Hopefully, it'll be a little more controlled next year, and we'll get to do it face to face together
There
one
you
more
go.
time. Cool deal.
I
Thank you
hope
so much,
so.
bud.